Hello, everyone. You all right, Dennis?
Good afternoon, Shabazz. I must remember
Yeah.
to turn my
It seems,
microphone on.
it seems like we're live on YouTube again. Hello,
We are.
everyone. Well, the two people watching, I suppose. And hopefully there's thousands of you watching. And
Yeah.
welcome to our second live stream of the Unreasonable Adjustments show. I did get that right, didn't I, Dennis?
Yeah, this is the Unreasonable Adjustments show, and we're
I
live
did our
on
second
YouTube.
one, right?
hmm
And I just wanted, before we begin, I just wanted to give people like a trigger warning because we never know what's going to happen in our conversations, and we might be talking about some distressing stuff. And I just wanted to give people a heads up, really, because some of what we talk about can be quite distressing, but this sort of stuff needs to be talked about. So I just wanted to say that. Anything you'd like to say before we bring our guests on?
No, I think that's a really good shout, Shabazz, actually, that we might have a trigger warning towards the beginning of the show, just when we're asking Paula about her background in activism, how she first got into it. And it'll probably ease off a bit after that with maybe a few murderous thoughts towards the government that I'm sure we all have sometimes.
Yeah, because we are fighting for justice here. You
We
know.
are, and we're all doing this because we have to. It isn't happening because we're all bored, is it? We're being forced into positions where disabled people are being radicalised by how we're being treated by the government. So, yeah,
And I just wanted to also say, I think there's closed captions available on the show as well. So people who want to use that, please do so. And uh, we were also, unfortunately, we were going to have two people on the show. Was it Nick Saunders? But unfortunately, he's not available today at very last minute. So Paul has stepped into the breach and gonna do the majority of the show with us. So thank you in advance for that, Paula. And yeah, is there anything you'd like to say, Dennis?
yeah. Just sorry to hear Nick wasn't up to joining us today. So yeah, we would have had Nick Saunders from the Campaign for Accessible Transport and the Disabled People's Direct Action Network coming to talk to us a little bit about kind of the history of disabled people, transport campaigning, working with unions. So I will try and pick up a bit of that as the oldest fart in the house today. And I guess without further ado, then we bring in the most wonderful guest, who's a dear friend of mine. I adore her to pieces. We've got Paula Peters this afternoon from Disabled People Against Cuts and also other organisations, which she'll tell you all about. I'm really looking forward to talking to Paula because, first of all, Paula's always very good fun. Second of all, Paula's always absolutely radical as hell. And of course, she's shit hot and knows her stuff.
So no pressure there, then, Paula.
How do I follow that?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Shabazz and Den, for having me speak to you all today. And I just want to pass best wishes on to Nick and hope we see him around soon. Solidarity, Nick, and hope you feel a bit brighter soon.
And Paula, can we start from the beginning for you first, please? So it gives people context of what they're dealing with.
Where do you want me to start from, Shabazz?
Right,
2010.
Whatever your journey to activism is.
Whoa. Well, my journey to activism started very early on, actually. I was 8 years old when I started campaigning. I was having treatment in the local hydrotherapy pool, and I've got to say, the service for hydrotherapy is absolutely awesome. Sadly, now it's very difficult to obtain in the NHS, which is so it's a travesty, actually, and that is something we really need to do some serious campaigning around that. So I had a year's hydrotherapy, and we heard the local hydrotherapy unit was going to close, and I wanted to. I heard there was going to be a campaign to try and save it, and also we had to raise money to build a new hydrotherapy unit because the land where the old hydrotherapy sat was going to be sold off for housing, as a lot of hospitals across the UK have been sold off for housing and everything, and replaced with private finance initiative projects for hospitals, which are disastrous. So I got involved with the campaigning, and it took us 3.5 years to get the funding sorted and everything. It was a lot of money raising and everything. And we shouldn't have to raise money for a service, to be honest with you. It should be there and provided for the community. And the hydrotherapy pool, we had to raise over £600,000, which over 40 years ago was a heck of a lot of money, We managed to do that, and we managed to save the pool into the hospital as well. So it was still in a hospital setting with the equipment needed. I learned to swim in a hydrotherapy pool, actually, and I owe hydrotherapy an awful lot. And up until 7 years ago, the pool served over 1 million people in southeast London. It was good to see that a service we'd fought so hard for was actually used in the community. Sadly, for me, I'm coming full circle because we're now having to campaign to fight to reopen the current hydrotherapy pool in the local area to me. So that's an ongoing campaign that we need support with. So if you hear of a local hydrotherapy pool, if you do use hydrotherapy services and you hear of a service going, because even sports centres, because hydrotherapy's moved into sports centres, and a lot of sports centres have been closed as well. So that's really important to get involved with campaigning around that, I think. I then I was dreadful at school because I hated injustice in the classroom, and disabled students being completely excluded from the classroom. I mean, I was bullied at school. I hate bullying, and I think it's important to talk about bullying not only in education but the wider society. Also, all forms of hate crime and discrimination, because I was bullied because I was a disabled student, which had a huge impact on me. It only fired my anger and injustice, actually, and to speak out about what had happened. Then at school, I saw one of my school friends was denied access to her medication at school. So I organised a sit-in. So the sit-in lasted for all day. Nobody could go out of the dining room. No teacher could come in, and I got severely punished for doing that. But it only fueled me into my secondary school career, where I organised a lot of protests about student rights and everything locally to me. So my sixth form tutor reckons I was either going to leave school and be a politician or a terrorist. He couldn't decide.
Maybe a bit of both.
I think he spent about 7 weeks where he couldn't get into the sixth form block because I was protesting about something with my fellow students and everything like that. So I think, when you see what's happening in universities today, like what's happened at Manchester University, where students have been reprimanded for protesting about rent, rent increases and everything, all power to the students, basically, and they should be able to have freedom of expression and the right to protest. And I fully believe in that. I mean, my nephew's about to join uni himself next month, and he's a disabled student. And I've actually said to him, well, make a stand. You see something you're not happy with, or, there's a protest going on, do get involved. And I'm really proud about what he's going to be doing actually at university, because he's very passionate about climate and what's happening in the environment, and he's actually going to be doing a degree in environmental geoscience. Wow. So he's going to be stuck into a lot of conservation work and sustainability, green energy, and saving the planet and everything like that. And we've had long chats about that. So, but
Yeah.
he's really passionate about the planet and climate and what's happening. So, I'm looking forward to hearing what he does next. So,
Paula, I wanted to ask you a question.
yeah.
That arose when you were talking. So, which one of those do you think you've become then? Do you think you're a politician or a terrorist?
I would say I'm a radicalist.
Okay.
I would say the government, to be honest, I was radicalized. I come from a long line of radicals of standing up for your rights and fighting back and standing against injustice. And I was always taught, when you see injustice or you see someone excluded, raise your voice and do something about that. And I come from a line of trade unionists and activists, so that was really important to me. And I still think, when I took my niece to Parliament a couple of months ago, and she's going to be doing A-level politics in September, and I actually turned around and she said, "Is campaigning pointless?" And I said, "No, not a hell's chance." I said, "The only thing that you've got to make a stand about something that you've been excluded from, a service you've lost, and we are the change. Basically, change happens on our streets and in our communities, and we can fight back to save a service and protect our human rights. And it's important to campaign." So I'm encouraging her in her activism as well. So I'm looking forward to
And,
seeing what she does.
and
So I got involved. I had a
sorry.
breakdown when I went to work, and I wasn't in a very good workplace, and I can't really talk about what I was involved with. I had a huge breakdown at my desk, and sadly, and this is a trigger warning for people with mental distress. Sadly, I tried to take my own life. I didn't have the support. There wasn't the support in the community even then, because cuts to mental health services were starting to come in the 90s. And I ended up in a psychiatric unit. And what I saw in the psychiatric system radicalized me even further. When you saw people put to the floor and injected against their will, and you have no rights in a psychiatric unit. So I got involved with the mental health survivor movement, and that's something I feel very strongly about. And then obviously I was around that for a long time. And then the government come into play. We heard rumblings about, if the Conservatives got the election, and I was hearing about the work capability assessment in 2008 and horror stories coming out from that. And one of my friends was one of the earliest claimants to go through when everyone was migrated from incapacity to employment and support allowance. And sadly, my friend Carol took her own life in December 2010, a week before Christmas. And the sheer fear of the work capability assessment and what happened to her sadly put me in hospital again. But I was determined when I come out, because there were people in severe mental distress who were hounded by the DWP even in hospital, having employment and support allowance 50 forms to fill out even though they were in a hospital setting, and being hounded by the DWP and not being left alone. And I wanted to do something about that. And I found Benefits and Work online, and that's a great resource if you need to fill out personal independence payments, know about universal credit. That is a really great resource. And there's a great, if you're on Facebook, and I know a lot of disabled people are not online, but for disabled people who are, there's a brilliant Facebook group, support for ESA, DLA, PIP, UC claimants. And a lot of these resources are in their file banks and everything like that. So, and no questions ridiculous. So, and I think it's important to know your rights around the social security system and the support that you can get, because with the cuts to wealth, law centres, libraries, welfare advice, it's hard to get that advice. And knowing where there is advice and someone's there to support you is really, really, really key and really, really important and a necessity. So I joined. It's weird because I wasn't a big fan of social media, well, Facebook anyway, because I thought it's just people putting pictures of the food up online. And that's not something, no disrespect to people who do that, but that's not really my cup of tea. But my friend told me to join, so early 2012 I did that. And then I come across this group called Disabled People Against Cuts, and I thought, who are they? And then I heard this campaign that they were running about ATOS. ATOS were the assessors for the work capability assessment back then, and they had this brilliant hashtag called ATOS Kills, which, you know, I thought, yeah, I want some of that. So I contacted Deepak and got involved with the campaign, because you had disabled people outside assessment centres talking to disabled people going through the system, collecting evidence. And obviously at that time as well, the Paralympic Games and the London Olympics were happening, and Atos were sponsoring the Paralympics. But not only that, I joined inaccessible transport was something I felt very strongly about, and we highlighted inaccessible bus stops around Parliament and London, which, well, basically they're shit, let's be quite truthful. And so I remember we occupied a couple of buses. I don't think passengers knew what to make of us as we got on the buses and overtook 3 buses. As we trundled down the Strand with our placards and posters, and wheelchair users were throwing themselves onto the ground to get onto the bus. And it was a really, really powerful campaign. But when Deepak did their week of action called the Atos Games, so we kind of did a couple of actions where we highlighted all of the descriptors, like lifting up a pint of milk and pressing a button. So we had a medal ceremony for, like, you know, if you couldn't do it, you were given a gold medal, and, you know, times and everything like that. So we done one outside the mayor's office. And then further in the week, we went to Atos HQ, which is in Warren Street in central London, and we'd collected thousands upon thousands of disabled people's stories of being impacted by the work capability assessment. And sadly, we were hearing stories of disabled people who'd lost their lives as a result of the constant stress and the impact of the work capability assessment process. So we had got a load of black balloons, and we had flowers and a coffin, and we delivered it to Atos HQ. And then, of course, the action of the closing ceremony on the last day of the Paralympics, we went to Atos and we shut down their office. But then Deepak went along to the DWP HQ in Total Street in London, and a group of disabled people got in and occupied the space in the reception area and shut the office down. And if memory comes to serve, Ian Duncan Smith and Maria Miller, as she was the Minister for Disabled People at the time, we had a nickname for her. We called her Killer Miller, because if I remember, we had wanted posters of her which said "Wanted Killer Miller," and that we used to hand out, and they were smuggled out under blankets. And that's when some disabled people got arrested, because the police charged with batons and everything like that. And one wheelchair user got their shoulder fractured at that protest. And I think it's really important to stress to people watching that the police have been bastards to disabled people for a long time, not only with the anti-protest law, but for decades before, when we've been protesting. Disabled people have been tipped out of wheelchairs and been hurt, had equipment broken, equipment that we need to use in our everyday lives. And that is a vital piece of equipment to us, and we often can't afford to replace it. So,
Mother, can I just jump in there?
yeah.
Well, just wanted to say, we've been going for about 20 minutes.
Oops.
We didn't want to run out of time. And we
Go,
wanted to
shut
talk
me up.
about your campaign about the closure of ticket offices. And
Yeah,
stuff
I
like
mean,
that.
I
So,
would say to everybody out there now, as everyone's seen online, that the RMT, the Rail Maritime Transport Museum that Deepak work a lot with, they've been highlighting the consultation to keep the ticket offices open. But there's a problem with the consultation in that it's not accessible. If you've got access needs, if you are a British Sign Language user, you need Braille, large print, easy read formats, audio. The ticket office train operating companies are making it incredibly difficult to get access to these formats, or they're not providing them. So millions of disabled people in England are not having their voices heard. And this also impacts on disabled people in Scotland and Wales who travel into England for travel and everything, are going to be impacted by this. It's important to stress that. So what I'd say to you, how to support, is actually, if you use Twitter or Facebook, what I would say, tweet about the fact you've not been able to access the consultation and why. If it's inaccessible or you haven't been able to access an accessible format, tweet about that. I think that needs highlighting with the media. And also the fact that 23% of disabled people in the UK have no access to a computer, access needs not met, and can't afford the broadband to use the computer. And I think that's really, really important.
hold on,
But
could you just say that number again? 23,000, did you say?
no, 23% of disabled
Okay.
people have no access to a computer because they can't afford it, and also access needs are not met to use it. And obviously with everything going digitalized, and that is what the government want, they want us to use a smartphone app. Well, many apps are not accessible, and a smartphone often is, and it can be a minefield to use one. And you know, ticket office, the staff in the ticket office provides so much support with journey planning, the range of tickets that are available, you know, just getting us onto the station and everything. And also it's about our safety, our security at night. I know as a disabled woman, I feel safer travelling knowing that there are staff in the ticket offices and staff on the stations. But I think the overall agenda for the government with this is, and this is something that isn't talked about a lot, is I think the government are going to go after what is called Schedule 17, and that is the obligation to staff stations. And we've seen for the past several years that the station staff have been cut. In many stations, there are no staff at all. So that means we can't access them at all. And that makes life even harder for us to live our everyday life. And this is also in direct conflict with the Article 19 of the United Nations Conventions of the Rights of Disabled People, and that is the right to independent living. If we can't travel independently, when you've lost the staff at the station and you've lost the staff in the ticket offices, we're not going to be able to live our lives, go to hospital, visit friends, visit family, and we're not going to be able to continue with our activism, because we need the public transport to travel to get to many protests and demos and be involved in climate activism, inaccessible transport activism, you know, and the
Putting each
fight for
other
our
as
rights
well.
or anything.
Yeah.
So it's important for people, disabled people up and down the country, you know, share your story of what a journey on the railway network is like and what it will mean for you when the staff are not there. Speak to the media, tag the media in online, but also reach out to your MP. There's a website called They Work For You. If you put your postcode in, your MP will come up. Speak to your local councillors, but share your stories of how inaccessible the consultation is, and
Hold
also
on,
support the court case by Lee Day, by Doug Pulley and Sarah Ledbetter, because that's going to be ongoing. And I think that's really, really important to support the legal action, because it's sometimes legal action can put a complete stop to all this. And that's
Can
really
I
important.
also ask you about Transport for All as an organisation? What do you think of them?
I've done stuff with Transport for All. in the past. We worked on the Crossrail project in London, which is now the Elizabeth line, when we fought for 7 inaccessible stations to become accessible and everything. And I was one of the campaigners for that back in 2013. To be honest with you, it's horses for courses, what people want to be involved in and what works for them. That's
I agree with that.
You know, if people want to work with them, it's up to them.
Sorry.
Or whatever they wish to do.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's lots of different places we can get involved in transport campaigning, isn't there? What I wanted to ask you as well, because I think we're going to stay on 5 extra minutes because we're having such a great time. What I wanted to ask you a bit more about was, I know you've been working really hard supporting the strikes as well. So as well as disabled people's campaigning, I know you've been really directly involved in being there on the ground, supporting local strikers. Do you mind talking about that a little bit?
I've been, I'm a chair of Unite Community Branch in Bromley and Croydon, but I'm also a chair of London and Eastern Region Unite Community. And I'm also the observer rep for the Disabled Members Committee in the region in London and Eastern for Unite. And DPAC have always believed it's important to build solidarity links with campaigns and trade unions because you have disabled workers. And it's important that ticket office staff and platform staff, there are many disabled workers who could be losing their jobs. So it's about showing solidarity and support and highlighting the issues that we're all impacted by. Because disabled people are, rail workers, teachers, doctors, and we're all impacted by the same issues. So I've always believed solidarity and support's important. So I've built a lot of links with the RMT locally, and we've been fighting the ticket off. Well, I mean, the RMT have been on strike for this campaign for 14 months now. And I think it's important if disabled people can support the next round of strike action the RMT are going to have, which is on this coming Saturday, the 26th of August. And also on the 2nd of September. So to show solidarity, because the rail workers really appreciate it, and they're really interested to hear what we're going through as disabled people, because they're also impacted. Shift workers, nurses, doctors, part-time workers, they're really impacted by, unstaffed stations at night and everything like that, and putting their safety at risk. So yeah, I think it's important to show solidarity on the picket line, even if you can't stay there for long. Just buy them a cup of coffee, or just go and shake their hands, or just say hello to them, and it really boosts their morale and realizing they've got public support behind them. But I think what this campaign has shown is there's mass anger, no matter who you are, non-disabled or disabled as well. We all use the railway network, and this has really lit the fire under a lot of people, and it's also got them involved in activism for the first time, which is a good thing.
Yeah, and I also think the government think, well, if they could do it with the railways, they could do it with all industries.
Well, my response to the government is this: you can think again on that one, because I will see you in court, and the more people we get involved, the better chances we have of pushing this government back on saving ticket office jobs and keeping the ticket offices open, but also fighting for all of our services, for the NHS, fighting back against climate change, getting involved in climate activism, fighting for our education. There is a campaign out there for everybody, and what I'd say to people, no matter how old you are, whether you're a student, you're at primary school, I mean, what's been brilliant with the NEU campaigns is seeing so many primary school kids on the picket lines with their mums and their dads, and supporting them. And I think that's brilliant, because whatever you're passionate about, get involved and campaign about it, because you do make a difference. Campaigning's never pointless, activism's never I've met some amazing people, I've had some amazing experiences. It's made me grow even more as a person, but also I would say, you know, I've learned from everyone I've been into contact with, including the two great people who are interviewing me.
Yeah, and what we need to wind up now, but is there anything lastly you would like to say, Paula, before we do our
Yeah,
closing bit?
I would just asking for support with DPAC, Black Triangle, Inclusion London, Reclaiming Our Futures Alliance are off to Geneva on Monday, the 28th of August.
Yeah.
And they're presenting the third United Nations Convention of the Rights of Disabled Peoples report to show how much worse things have got for disabled people since 2017. So, and you've also heard that the UK government is missing in action because they're not going to be there. So when you see tweets from the DPAC account on Twitter, please retweet and add your thoughts about what you see from the UN report, what your life's been like since 2017 to date, and just wish all disabled, deaf and disabled people's organisations, campaign groups and disabled people, wish them all the best for Monday as they give evidence. It's not an easy job to do, and support that work going forwards because that's really imperative.
Oh yeah, solidarity to our siblings over at DPAC who are doing that, our disabled sisters, brothers and others, as I like to say. I'm another. So
Solidarity, Den.
Oh, solidarity, my sis. Go ahead,
I'd
Shabazz.
like
Sorry,
to say
darling.
thank you, Paula, and now we'll do our closing segment. So
So we
thank
need
you,
to.
Paula, from the bottom of my heart, and me. There she is. She's got. Wasn't that brilliant, Dennis?
Oh my gosh, I could carry on all day.
Yeah, but I was just like, there was so much good stuff there, but I was just like, I was just thinking about the time all the time. So I was like, you know, we always have to think about our
Yeah.
audience as well. So, you know,
Well,
we can,
thank you to our audience for joining us today online.
and
for anyone watching it
sorry
later.
we didn't get to your questions, the audience, but please leave them in the comment section, and I'm sure they'll be answered in future shows. And I just wanted to let people know to get involved in the TWT conference that's happening in October. And like we always say, volunteer if you can, or support in any way you can. Is there anything you like to say, Dennis?
Yeah, just that we'll be hopefully right at the moment showing the links for how to find out more about the World Transforms conference in October and how to get involved. So that should be showing up. I think we're also going to be sharing links on how to follow Paula if you want to know more about what Paula's doing and see the things that Paula shares on the internet. And just lastly, the thing was to say that all the groups that we've mentioned today are online. So if you look for them maybe on Twitter, on Facebook, and if you can't find them there, look for the websites. And if you're really still stuck, get in touch with us and we'll help you find those organisations.
Yeah, this is why you're here, Dennis. You keep me in line, you know.
Well,
and I
someone's got
just
to do
want
it,
to
right?
close with a few words, really, because after our conversation, it made me think of all the other campaigns going on around the world. You know, to the writers' strike in America, to everything. You know, it's all fighting, like working with fighting against automation and getting rid of us as human beings. We've got to make sure we have a positive relationship with AI, really. And thank you again, Dennis. And
You, darling.
and hopefully we'll see you all again in a few weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us.